Okay, so for 6.4, it's all about personal loans, lines of credit, and overdraft. Now, something to understand is loans always pretty much work on your I equals P times R times T, because it won't compound on itself, because nobody would ever get a loan. It's all about what you initially took out. Say you took out $7,000 from a loan from a bank. You're going to slowly accumulate interest on the amount that you took out. Okay, it won't build upon itself as per se. Now, here's some definitions you want to understand. Amortization period, it's the time required to pay back a loan. The line of credit, so it's an approved loan amount that you can draw on as needed with interest charged on the money used. So as you guys move forward in life, line of credit is very, very important because if you have bad credit, you're not going to be able to take out loans. And everybody pretty much, not everybody, but many people take out loans in order to, say, get a mortgage, to buy a house. Overdraft protection, okay, this is an agreement with a bank that allows you to withdraw more money from an account than you have in it. And overdraft protection often relies on your line of credit. So if you have bad credit, guess what? The bank won't really say, yeah, you know what, you can take a bit more money out than you actually have, because they won't trust that you pay it back very quickly. So paying back things is really important. Payday loan, so this is essentially like if you need money immediately, you can take out a payday loan. But it's a short-term loan and you have really, really high interest. So that means you pay a ton on top of it. And default means you didn't pay your loan back, which can get you in trouble. So again, look through the examples that are worked through here. And as you can see, we're going to be using this equation quite a bit because that's what loans work on. So let's do an example here. Baru borrowed $250 from a payday loan company that had to repay $275 in 15 days. Calculate the annual interest rate. So he borrowed $250 and had to repay $275. So his P value there was $250 because that's initially what he took out. And then he had to repay $275. So we need to figure out how much interest he had to accumulate on top of that. So interest would be your the amount you actually pay back, $275, subtract what you initially took out. So I will equal $25. So he paid an extra $25 because he took 15 days to pay it back. It wants you to find the interest rate. So R is our question mark. Okay. And remember, anytime you do loans are based on the rate for a year. So we need to know, okay, 15 days, what's that a fraction of a year? So T will be 15 divided by 365. Okay. So from there, we can use our I equals P times R times T. And here we're going to try and find what R is. So let's plug in our values. So he paid an additional $25. He initially took out $250, so that's P. We're trying to solve for the interest rate, the annual interest rate, right, yearly. And then our T value, well, remember, since this is a yearly R value, our time will be 15 divided by 365, because that's the fraction of a year. And then from there, we're solving. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply this number by this number. And you're just going to obviously use your calculator here. So 250 times 15 divided by 365. So that gives me 25 equals 10.27 R. And then hopefully you know some simple algebra. If you don't, please come in and ask, but we're going to divide 10.27. And R is going to give us, so we're going to do 25 divided by 10.27, and that's going to give us an annual interest rate of 2.43%. Oh, never mind. Remember, R is in a decimal. So we want that in a percent, So what we're going to do is we're going to times that by 100. Remember, R is always in a decimal when you deal with this. So R is going to be 2.43 times 100, 243% interest. So that's a ton. So this must have been a payday loan. And we're right. How did I know it was a payday loan? Because it was a small amount of money and he paid it back quickly, but it was a huge interest rate. So if you take out a payday loan, you want to pay it back as soon as you can, because if you wait a year, you're going to be paying over 200% of $250. Okay, so let's look at 2 here. So Hadim borrowed $400 and paid back $415 in 10 days. What was the annual interest rate? Well, this is going to be the exact same idea. Okay, so here, remember, he borrowed $400 but paid $415. So the interest he paid on top of that is $415 minus $400. So he paid an additional $15 compared to what he bought. We want to know the annual interest rate, so this is yearly. Okay, so that means R is going to be for a year. Okay, we did it in 10 days. So since we're finding the yearly interest rate, we need to figure out what 10 days is a fraction of a year. So time will be 10 over 365. And then P, of course, is the amount you initially took out. So P is going to be $400. And then from there, remember, all loans work on simple interest. So I equals P times R times T. So now we're going to do the exact same thing we did above. So we're going to do our interest, which was $15, equals P, which was 400, times R, which is 10 divided by 365. And then, that's the time. We're solving for R. So times R times T, which is 10 divided by 365. Now, I want you guys to try and practice solving for R. Remember, we just did it above. You should get R to equal 1.37. But remember, this isn't a decimal. So to figure out the percent, I'm going to take 1.37 and times it by 100. So you should get 137%. So give that one a shot on your own. We've set it up properly. Just make sure you can plug this in your calculator and solve for R correctly. Okay? Now, I'll show you how to do B. B wants the daily interest rate, so things get a little bit more interesting. You're still doing I to be $15, okay, because he paid $15. You took out $400, so it's still $400, okay? But now, recognize you're doing it per day. So R is going to be in daily interest. And this works out fine because time, we don't have to figure out what 10 days is a fraction in a year, because our R is going to be in terms of days. So T is just going to stay as 10 days. And then from there, we're going to plug in our formula. So 15 equals P. So P is 400 times R, which we're trying to find out. And then times T, which is just 10 here. And then from there, you're going to solve. So I'm going to take these two numbers and multiply. So 15 equals 400 times 10, which is 4,000 times R. And then I'm going to divide by 4,000. So I'm going to get the daily interest rate, so it's not the same as the question above, to be 0.00375. And remember, to figure out what percentage that is, we're going to times it by 100. So 0.375%. So it looks like he's paying an additional 0.375% every day he doesn't pay his daily interest. Okay, so remember, in this formula, T, you have to think about what R is. Is R daily? Then we should talk about T in days. Is R yearly? Well, if we're talking about days, we need to figure out how many days is that a fraction of a year, so on and so forth. Okay, let's try out another question. Let's try out number 5 here. That looks like it's actually a part of the paper. So Helen agreed to pay $781.50 to a company that lent her $750 at a 1.05 per day. How many days did she have the money? Okay, so it's the same thing. As soon as we're talking about a loan, we're talking about simple interest. Okay. P, again, is the amount you took out. Well, she took out $750. Okay. We are actually told our R value. Okay. So this is per day. Recognize that. This is R equals 1.05, but remember it has to be in a decimal. So I'm going to divide it by 100, so 0.0105. And this is the interest per day. So that means T is going to be in days. So R equals 0.0105. Okay? And then finally, how do we figure out the interest here? Well, our interest, she paid this amount back, but she only took $750 out. So we need to figure out how much extra she paid on top of what she took out. So 781.5 divided by 750. And what you're going to end up getting there is she paid an additional $31.50. How many days did she take to repay? So there's our time. And guess what? We don't have to do anything where we're dividing it by 365 because this is in days. So since our R value is in days, T is going to come out in days. So we can plug this in here. So I is 31.5, P is 750, R is 0.0105, and now we're solving for T. And let's figure out what that looks like. So again, solve this first, 750 times 0.0105. So 31.50 equals 7.875 T. And then we're going to divide by 7.875. So 31.5 divided by 7.875. So that gives me 4 equals T. So remember, since this is per day, T is in days. So this is 4 days. So she paid it back pretty quickly, so good on her. Probably a pretty good idea to pay back fast. But check that out. Even this is a very bad loan, okay? So this is clearly a short-term loan because after 4 days, she paid an additional $31. So that does kind of suck. So make sure if you know you're going to take out a small loan, you're going to pay it back immediately, okay? Let's look for a few more questions to maybe go through. Okay, let's try this one out. Oh, you guys actually won't have to know how to do a few of these, so you should be okay. Okay? Let's find one more question that you could try out, or we could go through together. Okay, we could do this one. Let's do number 2, and then you should be good to go. So Cameron borrowed $250 from a payday loan store and agreed to repay it in 18 days at a rate of 1.17% per day. How much did she have to repay? So very similar to what we've done, okay? Here, we're talking about, and always remember, what is R in? It's per day. So 1.17 divided by 100 equals 0.0117. Okay, this is per day. So what does that mean T will come out in? T will be measured in days. And it looks like it is. She's repaying it in 18 days. So we don't have to convert anything there. Okay. How much will she have to repay? Well, let's figure out how much interest she pays on top of this and then add it to our original amount. So our P value, she borrowed $250. So let's figure out I equals P times R times T. Our principal amount is $250 times our daily rate, which is 0.0117, times our the number of days passed, so 18. And that should be simple enough where you just plug that in your calculator and you should get $52.65. Okay? Now remember, this is not how much she has to repay. She has to repay what she took out and then the interest added on. So what she's going to have to pay back will be, she'll have to repay $250 plus $52.65. So she's going to have to give up $302.65. And that's what she's going to have to repay. So only after 18 days, this accumulated an extra $52, which does kind of suck. Okay? And other than that, guys, make sure you're using these useful links if you get a little confused, okay? This stuff's really important because it's going to follow you kind of throughout your life. Everybody's maybe going to have to take out a loan someday. Everybody's going to have to buy a mortgage if they buy a house. Some people are going to finance cars, which all has to do with this type of stuff. And maybe you're an entrepreneur or something like that where you start your own business. And lots of businesses start up with loans, okay? So understanding this is pretty important moving forward. If you have any questions, please come in. Give a few questions a shot on your own, and remember to complete any assignments that are due. Have a wonderful day.